Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. Hello guys, welcome back. So today I wanted to talk about Dust of Dreams, chapter 15, and more specifically about the Hobbling scene. That famous Hobbling scene with Hetan that everyone talks about in this book. And at the beginning I thought about doing a read-through reaction like I normally do with some of the chapters when I read through. But it somehow didn't feel right with this scene, because normally when I do it because I have fun recording them. I love sharing with you guys my reactions as I read through, and overall I do it for entertainment purposes, normally. But with this scene, I felt like it wasn't right, because it's a very gruesome, disturbing scene. And just a disclaimer, if you find that torture and rape is too much for you and you can find it triggering, I suggest you don't watch this video, because it can be a bit too much for you. And so, yeah, I suggest you simply don't watch the video. But I feel like I just wanted to read the chapter by myself and then process it, reflect upon it. I had some time to read some of the scenes of the chapter again, just take it all in. And now I finished it an hour ago. I just wanted to come here and share my honest thoughts with you guys. I'm gonna share my opinion. I don't expect everyone to share my opinion, because it's just my point of view of these events. I understand if people find that this scene was simply not necessary in this book, and I understand if people think that it's too much, that they just it decreased their enjoyment of the book overall, and maybe some people even stop reading the book because of it. And I can perfectly understand that decision, because it's normal. I totally agree. But I think that even if it was not necessary, because we've seen so much in Malazan already, we've seen so many things, but I feel like I understand why Erikson has decided to include it, and I think he handles it very well. And the reason is that even if Malazan is a fantasy world, probably escapist fantasy for many, I feel it's also a reflection of our own world, and that is a commentary that Erikson has been making since the first word he wrote in Gardens of the Moon. And this series has literally showed us the best, the absolute best of what humanity can do, but also the absolute worst of the human condition. And we've seen the smallest to the largest and the biggest acts of compassion. We've seen people helping each other. We've seen people defending others who they don't even know. We've seen people standing for what they believe in. We've seen people caring for each other, but also people sacrificing themselves for a good cause. But on the other hand, we've also seen betrayals. We've seen murders, rapes, battles, backstabbing, the most gruesome acts of indifference. We've seen people and characters turning away from other characters. And overall, I know, and I think that Erikson doesn't write these scenes just for shock purpose. He never, ever glorifies these acts. Never. And in many films and in many books, and I'm sure all of you guys have seen it and you've experienced it. I just saw a film last night that was just, well, I'm not even going to mention the name of the film, but basically they take these gruesome acts and they just glorify it. They just do it to shock their audience. They just want the audience to be gripped to their seat, gripped to the book. They want to make you jump from your seat, but these scenes and these acts never have actual repercussions. And that's something that I find a bit annoying, because especially we've seen a lot of rape scenes in many films, for example. Last night in the film, I think there were at least like 4 scenes raping women. And there never is any type of connection with the character. There never is any type of repercussion for anything in the film. And I just find it just horrible, honestly, because we've seen it for so long. I know rape has been very prominent, rape against women, also against men, but we've seen it a lot through history against women, and I just find it incredibly disturbing. But I feel like even if Erikson has also decided to include rape in this scene, I feel like he handles it well, because these scenes have consequences and repercussions for the character and for those around them also. And I think that's incredibly important in fantasy or in any other genre. And in this scene, I haven't even read past chapter 15, so I don't know what consequences this scene could have in the rest of the book. But already in this scene, we've seen repercussions on so many characters. We've seen it in Tool, who I don't even have to talk about the last scene of the chapter with him coming back and turning into a Tlanimas. We've seen it in her children, which was incredibly demolishing. The fact of them realizing that their parents would literally be dead. We've seen it in Bakal, which was also, I'm going to talk about it later. But for me, the most horrible part of the chapter was when Kafal realizes that he would not make it in time and he could not save her sister from that horrible scene. And that, for me, that was the most demolishing thing, honestly. So that was the part that I was crying my eyes out, honestly. Because you can see the repercussions that has on all of these characters. We've also got the repercussions on Hetan. We get her perspective in the chapter, and I'm going to talk about that later. But overall, we have this connection with Hetan. We've seen her in Memories of Ice. We've seen her in Reaper's Gale. We've seen her connect with many characters, interact with many characters. We've obviously seen her from Tool's perspective, who we love. And so we feel an incredibly strong emotional connection with her. And so this scene obviously affects us a lot. And I don't like using the term strong woman, because strong woman, all women are strong. And I feel like, we have women who are in power. We have women that have less amounts of power, but all women are strong. And Hetan, in this case, is just incredibly, she's such a well-developed character overall. And I feel like the fact that it happens to her is something that is, I feel like she's just not used for this scene. I feel like many authors would create female characters just so that this type of scene could happen to them. And this is never the case with Hetan, in my opinion. I feel like Erikson never writes any type of scene just using a male or female character, because we've also seen male rape in this series. So I feel like there's some type of balance. I feel like in this book, women are portrayed in a different way than men, but that's obviously for another conversation. But I feel like Hetan, as a well-developed character, suffers through these things, and there's consequences, but she's not used as an object to shock the audience. And this type of scenes, they've been happening for a long time, historically, but they're also happening right now in many parts of the world, and not even in the other side of the world, because these type of scenes, even if they're not as gruesome, they're happening right now back home in Spain, with many men raping a single woman. And honestly, it's a bit difficult to talk about this, because obviously I don't want to take just one side. Obviously there's Malazan just gives you and presents you dilemmas, and that's what I love about it, even if it's escapist fantasy. And I love Malazan for many things. I love its world building, the characters, I love the settings, the magic, the gods. I love all these type of things about Malazan. But what I really like about Malazan is that I learn from it. I learn from the human condition. I learn from other people around me, and I learn about myself. And for me, with Malazan, even if I learn to be a better reader, for me the most important is that I learn to be a better human. And this is why I think I understand why Erikson has decided to include these things which are part of our own world. And it might be crazy to think that the series which has like gods, ascendants, all type of races with like dragons and jagots and Tlanimas, you would never expect from such a series that it makes such powerful commentaries on the human condition, but it actually does. And Erikson never gives you the right answer. He never tells you, this is what you should think about this scene. He never ever does it. He just puts forward an argument. He puts forward a dilemma for you to think about, to reflect upon. And this is what I think he's doing with the Hetan scene. He just gives you, not to shock you, but to make you think, to make you reflect upon many things that have been happening for millennia in humanity and are still happening right now. And, you know, we have, in some parts of the world, we have women who can't even drive, they can't even work, they can't even go to school, they can't even express their opinion, they can't vote, they can't even do sports, and we have female mutilation, we have rape, we have so many types of inequalities to different scales. And even if this takes it a bit to the extreme, I feel like it's a valid commentary on all of these things. And honestly, we've seen throughout all our journey, at least my journey, we've seen the compassion and the empathy in this series. But I feel like in order to really feel compassion, we in a way need to witness these scenes and understand the consequences and repercussions. And I feel like even if it's really painful, I can please don't understand, like, you can't really feel compassion if you don't read this scene. I feel like it's completely valid to not read this scene. I think you can just read a summary online and just know and just literally pass through this chapter, because I feel like it could be very triggering for many, many people, men and women. But I feel, and I really strongly think that if you feel like you can read it, I feel like you should, because it's something that is incredibly important. And even if it's really painful, because it was really, really difficult for me to read the chapter. I had to stop quite sometimes throughout my reading. And even if it's really painful, I don't think the pain that we could feel could compare to the pain that someone who is being raped or tortured or murdered could feel at that moment. I don't think it compares. And talking specifically about Hetan and the scene, the part that really, I found it really difficult to read about was when she accepts her fate and when she comes to convince herself that everything that is happening to her right now, the fact that her feet have been cut off, that her feet have been cauterized with hot iron, and the fact that she is raped by dozens of men, that all of that she deserves because she let her children down and she let her children be killed. For me, that's the most horrible part of all of the chapter. And even worse is the fact that it's the women of the Barghaz tribe that are the first ones who are actually involved and take part in bringing her down. And they let a 9-year-old be part of all of that by cauterizing her feet. That for me is just, I feel like, yes, Erikson is in a way exceeding some limits, but I can see why he decides to include it. I really do. I really think I really understand it, honestly. We get, in many parts of that scene, Hetan's perspective, and I feel it's good because I would hate if it was only from other people's perspectives in that scene that we could see her. I would not like that. But I feel like we just get enough without showing too much. Because I feel like many authors would dwell on that scene. They would just describe and visually describe all of these gruesome acts just to give us even more shock, even more disgust. But I feel like Erikson just gives us just enough for us to realize how horrible this act is, and how much and how this act is changing her in many ways, and for all those around her. But I just think that Erikson gives us just enough for us to make us realize. And just to kind of conclude this video, I feel like, you know, we are generally used to looking away from these type of violent acts, especially when we have an emotional connection, and especially when there are repercussions to that scene, when we get the actual true reaction of the characters around her. I feel like in those instances, that makes us really uncomfortable. It's almost literally unbearable to read. For example, we have the character of Bakal, who, even if he feels bad, even if he had that relationship in the previous scene with Tool, who made him realize about everything, but even him, he didn't do anything about it. He just stepped aside, and I feel like, in a way, the first instinct would be just not read this scene, just to look away, because these things make us really uncomfortable. I feel like no one is really, well, most people would not be comfortable with this degree of violence. But I feel like for all the victims of rape and torture and any type of suffering around the world, I feel like they deserve that we confront this reality, read it, reflect upon it, and learn it. Because that's, I feel like, the only way that we can actually move on and keep advancing and being better people, I feel. But that's just my opinion. I'm not saying that we should all read this scene, because I can understand if people don't want to read it. I really do. Really, really do. But I feel like all of the victims deserve that type of compassion by confronting this reality. Because not confronting this reality and thinking that humanity is just the good part would not be objective and would not be looking at the true self. But that's my opinion. And overall, again, I think that maybe there were some limits that were taken a bit too much in this chapter. I can understand that people are generally unhappy about this scene, but I really do understand that Erickson has decided to include it, and I feel like he handles it extremely well. But well, that's my opinion, and I just wanted to share my thoughts on this scene, because for me, this series overall, it's teaching me things all the time. And so I feel like these vlogs, in a way, are a way for me to actually just think about my thoughts and just get them out. So yeah, I hope you, well, let me know what you think of this scene. I really want to hear other perspectives. I feel like I also learn a lot from you guys, especially when the comments are constructive and you give me more things to think about. So let me know what you thought, if you thought this was too much, if you thought he should have included it or not. And yeah, really excited to keep reading this book. I think we're gonna see a lot of repercussions of that scene in the rest of the book. And yeah, I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you.